This isn't the video I thought I'd do, but here we are. You, me, an empty bag of Jelly Bellies, and an assignment I totally procrastinated with by making this video instead. This should be fun. Hey everyone, I'm V for Verbatim, and I should probably reassess seeing candy as one of the 5 major food groups. On this channel I've already discussed my love of horror movies, FNAF, and Japan, Asia, but I really didn't touch on my bitter loyalty for certain candy brands. It's not something I should be proud of, but I indulge my taste buds from time to time in the peanut buttery goodness of a Reese's or 12. And maybe when I buy a 35 pack of that sweet peppermint 5 gum, I go through the entire pack in a week. But that doesn't mean I have a problem, right? But I have to say, I have a real love for the underdogs. Bottle caps, almond joys, milk duds, sprees. I eat that kind of stuff up. They're underdog status and tragic pasts, I mean. And literally sometimes. But of the lesser loved candies, I've really come to love Jelly Bellies in recent years. Known for their vast variety of, admittedly not that great jelly beans, a classic bag of these bad boys contains 30 flavors, varying from typical flavors like watermelon and cherry to really odd ones like Dr. Pepper and caramel popcorn. Fun fact, by the way, the original 8 flavors Jelly Belly made back in 1976 were berry, cherry, root beer, cream soda, tangerine, green apple, lemon, licorice, and grape. All of which are still part of the classic bags you see today with the exception of grape. Jelly Bellies to me feel like an old-fashioned ice cream parlor. They've got all these flavors and you know not all of them are going to be great, but it's still a nostalgic enough treat. The upside of Jelly Bellies, however, is that you get to try all 30 flavors, which is what we're going to be doing today. While you can't try them all yourselves from your phone or computer, I'm sure you've had at least a few of them, so you may hear some of your favorites being mentioned here today. I went into this with an open, mostly objective mind, but I'll say this now, my preference has always been for the strongest flavors, not necessarily the subtle notes. I ain't a sommelier, but I tried my best to cover all 10,000 taste buds with this one. I ranked these based on accuracy to the original flavor, strength, and uniqueness of flavor, with jelly bean color and the flavor of the bean versus candy shell as minor categories. But enough of my rambling, let's get to flavors. This is the only category of beans where I got no enjoyment out of the flavors. It's the smallest category, but I can assure you, one of these crimes against humanity has the power to ruin your entire experience with this brand. Caramel corn. If you're surprised, go read a book. Burn all of these. They taste like every worst part of the buttered popcorn bean with the syrupy sweetness that invades every facial orifice. I swear these things could only be made in hell. Buttered popcorn. No explanation required, but I guess that's why you're here. So, too sweet, no buttery flavor, no saltiness. They don't taste like popcorn as much as they taste like sugary egg. The bean even looks like an egg. It's unpleasant, inside and out. If you find these in your bag, do yourself a favor and go make yourself a bag of popcorn. It's a better use of 5 minutes than the gagging and gargling of mouthwash you'd be doing to get rid of these things and their flavor from your mouth. Tutti Frutti. You thought it would only be these two here, right? Right? Think again. Tutti Frutti is a lie. Das ist kaputt, das ist Mist, no me gusta. Okay, so picture this. Just an innocent small bean that looks like confetti. It's a cute little guy, and he's fruity. Sounds like we'll get along just fine. But surprise, you fool, because he is a malicious little bitch. It's just mint and bubblegum. This is false advertising. No fruitiness, no sourness. Lies, I tell you, lies! So yeah, like I said, I love Jelly Bellies. I'm sure you can tell that already. This is the largest category alongside best flavors. These ones mostly suffer from lack of memorability. They weren't bad per se, but they weren't the best either. A few got extra points here and there for unique flavors or colors because I felt like being nice. Sunkissed Tangerine. Subjectively, I would have ranked these a little bit higher because of my love of citrus, but as it stands, there's just a little bit of citrus flavor with these ones and they're just a little too sweet and just generally kind of bland. It's pretty boring overall, but it's the lack of substantial citrus flavor in the bean itself that kind of takes me out of it. After the initial coating is lost, you're just left with a sweet bean and a little of that promised tangerine flavor, and it's just not enough for me. Bubblegum. It's definitely the perfect flavor for jelly beans. It's a simple flavor and it works with the jelly bean sweetness, but that's really the problem. It's just way too simple. Not much going on in the flavor department, though it is very reminiscent of Hubba Bubba and those old-fashioned powdery types of bubblegum, so I guess bonus points for nostalgia. Coconut. And here begins the inferior toasted marshmallow clone section. They're all just very sweet white beans that don't really do it for me. Coconut is the least interesting of them all. It's pretty coconutty at first, but the flavor just disappears a little too fast for my liking, leaving you with little to distinguish it from similar beans. Maybe a toasted coconut flavor would be more interesting flavor-wise, but for me at least, I was just not impressed. Vanilla bean. Our second toasted marshmallow clone. It's not bad. It's able to capture that vanilla bean specific flavor, but again, it disappears quickly, and you're left with a mouth of white sweetness. It just doesn't stick the landing for me. But I do love the subtle vanilla bean specks. Attention to detail is very much appreciated. Cream soda. Marshmallow number 3. There's very little soda flavor. It's mostly sweetness again, but it's a little more pleasant, luckily, with that little bit of soda. Not bad, but not very good either. Strawberry cheesecake. I consider this an honorary toasted marshmallow clone because of the blandness. I'm a lover of cheesecake. I know cheesecake. This ain't cheesecake. It's something kind of not good, and it has the opposite problem of lingering just a little bit too long in your mouth. There's no attempt at a cream cheese flavor, just a milky sweetness and a strong strawberry flavor. I don't really like strawberries, but that was unfortunately the most redeemable part about this bean. I think if this little guy was listed as strawberry ice cream, I would have enjoyed it a lot more. Watermelon. Definitely the second biggest disappointment, just behind strawberry cheesecake. A little sweet, a little sour, good enough I guess, but I don't think it fully commits to the actual watermelon flavor or that commercially accepted watermelon flavor. If I could compare it to anything, it's like sweet watermelon gum, but just a little worse. The jelly bean shell is also such a missed opportunity considering how colorful watermelons are. It's green on the outside with the bean itself being red. Cool, right? The problem is that by the time you actually see that red part of the bean, it's already in your mouth, so you'd be like fishing around in your mouth, and that's kind of gross. You don't really get to appreciate it that much, so it's a missed opportunity. Green apple. This one was hard to place for me. I would say it's an arguably better flavor than red apple because it's a little stronger and more distinct, but it's less accurate when comparing it to an actual apple. I mean, it tastes more like chemical green apple than green apple dum-dums. I think that really says it all. Red apple. Like I said, this one's a little more accurate flavor-wise. It reminds me of a red apple Skittle, so I really felt the nostalgia. It was definitely apple, but it was just also the tiniest bit boring, so I can't really place it much higher than here. It's in the meh category. Blueberry. This is when we start to get into the really accurate ones and starting to get into the good ones. It's clearly blueberry, very fruity, just there's other fruity flavors that are a little bit more interesting. This category really ties together the best and the worst of the beans. Without this category, I think it would be a lot of really good contenders and then a bunch of crappy ones that kind of ruin the entire experience. So I would consider these the most important beans. Cotton candy. The flavor confused me at first. There was a strong strawberry flavor, and it was only when I realized that cotton candy is strawberry flavor that I really got to appreciate that. If you've eaten cotton candy, you know that when you bite into it, it becomes a darker shade of pink in those areas, and it feels like a more concentrated strawberry flavor. So I thought it was a nice touch for it to taste like concentrated strawberry before fading to that fluffy cotton candy sweetness of the, cotton candy as a whole. So it starts with a strong flavor, but then it fades back into a regular cotton candy. It just felt impressive to me. Berry cherry. This is just a personal bias, but cherry has always been a strong flavor in this group. It's the perfect amount of sour, classic cherry flavor, and it has a nice amount of sweetness at the end. It's a very good flavor overall, and I can see why it's a popular one. Pomegranate. If this was labeled as fruit punch, it would be the best one, because it tastes just like fruit punch. It's inaccurate, it's very strong, very fruity, and not too sweet once the coating is gone, so I consider this one my favorite overall, and knowing that we're only halfway through the list tells me that the ones coming up are pretty good as well. Toasted marshmallow. This is where the jelly bean really shines the most with sweetness. It doesn't have any toasted notes, which are definitely disappointing, but I think that slight over sweetness that is a problem with all the other jelly beans works here because it really is reminiscent of a marshmallow. The color's also very nice, and I love the toasted little bits to it. It gives it a little bit of color and a little bit more personality than the other white beans that are kind of clones of this one. Dr. Pepper and root beer. Both taste soda-y and were actually made with the Dr. Pepper and root beer solutions. They're definitely accurate, they just felt out of place in this line. Chocolate pudding. I will admit, this one was my favorite as a child, so it being placed this high is definitely my personal preference. It actually tastes like chocolate, which is very impressive for a chocolate candy. And now, having had pudding a few times before, I can definitely appreciate that it does taste like pudding. Sweetness, however, does detract from the experience at the end, which is why I can't rank it any higher. Sunkissed Lemon. Another citrusy one. It's a nice way to break up the sweeter flavors. It has a nice amount of citrus. It's just not very memorable compared to some of the better ones that we're about to get to right now. It's a solid flavor, it's just didn't do lemons as much justice as they should have. Now we get to the best of the best. Not only do these succeed for their accuracy in comparison to their original flavors, but they also do something interesting with the bean, whether that's color or something else, as I'll get to. These really are the best of the best, and considering a third of the bag's flavors are in this category, you know you're in for a good ride when you have a bag of these things. Top Banana. I'm not going to beat around the bush, I really hate bananas, so seeing it do this well kind of makes me annoyed. It's like the movie Dune if you've seen that. I just hate it for no reason. It's sweet, the banana's there, very much so, and I hate it because it's so accurate. I can't complain about it even though I hate the flavor. Peach. One of the best fruit flavors by far. It really nails that odd peach skin flavor that you see with most pitted fruits, apricots especially. It has sweet and sour notes, and it has one of the best colorations. The only downside to this one is a personal preference, because peach is the same color as the vomit-flavored jelly bean, so you really can't unsee it when you see it. Orange Sherbet. Nothing to complain about with this one. Orange flavor, fantastic. Sherbet flavor, excellent. And there's this really nice thing where when you get that explosion of flavor when you break up the bean coating, it tastes like sherbet in the back of your throat. There's a lot of different layers to this flavor, and I really appreciate that. Pina Colada. It's got that sweetness to the coconuts. There's an exciting burst of sour with the pineapple right at the beginning. It feels relaxing in your mouth when it settles to sweetness, and I think it's probably the best use of that gradual sweetness. It really feels like it belongs on a beachside right next to an actual pina colada. Cinnamon. I will admit the flavor for this one is very intense the first time, like it was very spicy. But it's a really pleasant surprise in following experiences, especially after you've had like a bunch of really boring flavors. Like if you get 5 coconuts in a row and you feel depressed, pop one of these things in your mouth and you are back to business. There's this really intense heat, but it's balanced by a sweet spice once the coating is gone, and it lingers for just the right amount of time, which I think really makes this. If it had lingered any longer, I don't think this bean would be as good. 10 out of 10 for cinnamon. Licorice. Nobody likes black licorice, it's such a cliche at this point, but the aftertaste of this bean is impressive. They nailed it. It tastes like fennel, if you know that vegetable. That fennel aftertaste is very impressive. I hate licorice too, but it's just too accurate to not be impressed. Cappuccino. It's very coffee-ish, and it was reminiscent of coffee nut M&Ms for me. The bean itself tastes like it was dipped in coffee. So even when you're left with that jelly bean at the end with no coating, you still have that nice coffee flavor that feels infused into the actual gummy. It's very impressive even if it's not my cup of tea. Lemon Lime. This is my personal favorite, so this is very biased. The citrus is nice, the sweetness is tolerable, and it's got a little more going on with the 2 flavors. It makes it a more interesting experience, but unbiased, this one probably ranks above cherry but lower than pina colada. Juicy Pear. Not a fan of pears, but the flavor is just too on point. It's truly juicy, and its earthy flavor disappears just fast enough to not be revolting to me as a person who doesn't like pears. I can tell it would be enjoyable to anybody that likes pears, and people who don't will at least enjoy the accuracy of this one and the layers of flavor that this one has. It's fruity, it's juicy, the color isn't too bad, and it's definitely the top flavor of the bag. So there we are, all 30 classic Jelly Belly flavors, ranked in a way that will cause my audience the most amount of rage. Sorry guys, that's just my opinion. But I would like to hear yours. Feel free to leave a comment telling me which ones your favorites are, or which ones you think are pretty bad. I'd be very surprised if it didn't include buttered popcorn or caramel corn or Tutti Frutti somewhere. But if it's not, I'd like to hear those brave souls that actually like it and why they like it, because I personally don't understand the appeal, but I do want to understand how other people think of these things. Feel free to do that, like and subscribe if you feel like it. I don't want to pressure anybody, but I will continue to make this content if people do see it and like it. So, yeah, that's pretty much it for you guys. Hope you have a nice day, and this is V for Verbatim signing off until the next video. Take care, guys.